Welcome to the show, everybody. This is your boy Lo Jackson coming to you live from Charleston, Illinois, where it's always cold in the winter, but, it's a Sunday, daylight savings time. We just sprung forward an hour, and I can see the crocus outside the window here starting to show its beautiful face. So I'll have some daffodils here in the springtime, maybe about a month down the road. But today I want to talk to you about a book that I've listened to on Audible several times. It's one of the greatest books I've really come across in a long time. When I first heard it, it was mind-blowing, and I was doing air conditioning and I was listening to it on a rooftop in Phoenix, Arizona, thinking, whoa, man, this guy is really just a beautiful mind to put all this together, and the stories he came up with in there and the research that he put into the book. Me personally, Lo, your boy, I'm going to give it a 5-star review because I've listened to it so many times and it's really helped my life. I've found this book in little, 5 and dime stores and given it away to other people. I recently gave it to somebody in my company, and I hope that she's reading it. But The Power of Habit, Why We Do What We Do in Life and in Business by Charles Duhigg. And Charles Duhigg, he's come up before in my reviews in the past, and like Atomic Habits, I believe, Surrounded by Idiots. The author of that book, also talks about Charles Duhigg. So this dude's huge, like he's well renowned. On Kindle, this book has a 4.6 star review out of 5 stars. It's 77% gave it 5 stars. 4 stars was 15%. 3 stars was 5%. 2 stars was 2%. 1 star 1%. I'll read you. Oh, here's a 3-star review by Speed Reader 515 on Kindle store. I really wanted to like it. I really wanted to like this book, but I wanted more than that. Were clear and concrete tactics or strategies to hack my habits. Strategies and tactics that were groundbreaking, clear, receptible, and effectively for my life. I guess everybody would want that with a book, but everything in life is how you apply it. Even the Bible or, simple books, even the Quran. Come on. These are all steps to help you start something in your life to get you to somewhere else as opposed to where you were in the past, is my understanding of each of these books. Each author that I've been reading here lately about behaviors and habits, I really understand that it's about what works for you personally and how you stay true to that pretty much routine, because everybody's got to have a good routine. Charles Duhigg has written he's actually written a couple books. Let me tell you, Charles Duhigg is an American journalist and a nonfiction author. He graduated from Harvard and Yale. He currently works for the New Yorker magazine. I think that's pretty awesome. In 2013, he won the Pulitzer Prize for explanatory reporting, which is mastering composition of writing on really hard topics. So, the Pulitzer Prize is an award for achievements in newspaper, magazines, online journalism, literature, and musical composition within the United States. It was established in 1917 by provisions in the will of Joseph Pulitzer. He had made his fortune as a newspaper publisher, so when he died, his will said, hey, I want this to happen, and it did, and it's gone on since his death. And I think it's something wonderful for writers in the United States, and I think other people from all over the world maybe now have similar programs like this too. Charles Duhigg was or has written 3 bestsellers. He was an associate professor at Harvard, also an advisor for the World Health Organization, and the founder of a nonprofit that sends medical supplies to deprived parts of the world. I think that's pretty awesome. Thank you, Charles, for all your writings. Thank you for this wonderful book, The Power of Habit. You know, I think this is one of the greatest reads I've read. Well, I've been reading this book now for, I think, almost 4 years, really. Let's see here. On Google Books, this book has a 4.7 star review. Davis McClellan gave it a 5-star review on February 26, 2013, so this is a while ago, but hey, it's still a great read. This book was very interesting. Being a college student and always have an exorbitant amount of classwork to do is extremely important to build good habits. Well, thank you, David, for that review. I think it's a great read, too. Here's one that's not so great. Kira's Pink gave it a 2-star review on September 15th, 2015. It says, the usefulness of this book is too questionable. If you really want to change your life, The Power of Now is the book that gives deep insights for the mind. In which, that's her personal opinion, and thank you so much, Pink, for that, but I think it's a 5-star book, because when I first read it, I mean, when you learn the stories in here about other companies and the things that they're doing, like, so the first chapter is the habit loop, and other authors that are in the same field as this gentleman, they write about the power, or the habit loop also, and I talked about some of the habit loops in other books and book reviews in the past, but the outside part of the brain, which is, you know, shooting electrons and thoughts millions of seconds of the day out of the day. I mean, you have 1 million and some thoughts a day, every day. But it's like when you laugh at a friend's joke, that's the outside part of your brain closest to the skin, creating those, or like firing those neurons that are making you realize that it was funny. You know, it isn't easy just to be able to put 2 and 2 together and make a joke and laugh about it. You don't realize really what goes on in your brain to make you realize that somebody's making a joke. See, now, I have a son who's autistic, and he doesn't get the social cues of a joke. I can't sit here and, you know, banter with him about something funny, or because he don't get that correlation between the two funny things. And the habit loop is in the first chapter of this book, The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg talks about the habit loop in the outside part of the brain, where when you laugh at a friend's joke, this is the outside part of the brain. Or when you dream up a new invention, also he talks about in this first chapter that the the neurons firing at that time are the reason why you're able to dream up this new invention. I mean, think about Nikola Tesla. Man, he dreamed up a lot of amazing things, and he's still, his dreams are still becoming realities in the moment right now. And we are still yet to uncover some of his dreams. Charles Duhigg writes about deep inside the brain are automatic behaviors. The basal ganglia is a golf ball sized part of the brain, and for a long time it's been under suspicion it may have something to do with Parkinson's disease. And he talks about this in the habit loop in chapter 1 of this book, and man, he really dives into so much that just it opens your mind to make you realize what kind of goes on inside of your brain when you start falling into a habit loop and you don't even see it. And that's why it talks about like the Parkinson's disease, because, you know, that's the part of the brain, that disease makes us forget, we forget people we love, and it's a, it creates like a neurological disorder and like shaking and all that stuff. Michael J. Fox suffers from Parkinson's disease, as well did Muhammad Ali. Charles Duhigg talks about emotional habits as well in this chapter. Habits emerge without our permissions. Cues and rewards. If you guys remember in Atomic Habits, he talks about, cues, response, craving, reward. That's a huge psychological fact, and people need to realize those are building blocks. That's something you could use just right there, but you got to understand how to, build on a bad habit and with a good habit and transform yourself, in which I'm still working on this stuff too. It's not easy. Trust me, it's a lot of work. And people just keep on living to live and falling through their life, not thinking about what they're doing and worrying about everybody around themselves, besides what's really going on inside themselves. And it's like, you can't be a martyr and not realize that you should be a martyr for yourself before you can be a martyr for someone else. And those are my own opinions, those are my own thoughts and my own feelings. But Charles Duhigg writes in the first chapter about habit loop that scientists discovered a habit loop, and talks about, how McDonald's, the fast food restaurants, French fries are designed to disintegrate the moment they touch and hit your tongue, people. And it's crazy that I walk into my chiropractic office and I see that McDonald's cheeseburger and French fries has been up there for 9 years and it still looks the same as when they made it. I find that really interesting, but that's food science, and that's what's going on in America too, that create so many bad habits, and it's like explosive bad habits that the chemicals that they're creating are taking advantage of the American brains out there, and really they're taking advantage of the power of our habits and how they constrict us from being totally beautiful people and being able to be self-sufficient and realize that we're under the control of our own terrible habits sometimes, and it's wild. Those French fries are designed to dissipate the moment they hit your tongue, creating a habit loop for fast food. And I'll tell you something about McDonald's too. There's a little family restaurant in Fairbury, Illinois called McDonald's Family Restaurant. They opened long before the mega food chain McDonald's fast food restaurant. Well, back in the 90s, McDonald's Corporation decided they were going to build a McDonald's inside of Fairbury, Illinois, on the other side of town of McDonald's Family Restaurant. The corporation then decided, since they had moved in there, realized they were losing money to the business across town, that they were going to take McDonald's Family Restaurant to court and sue them for copyright infringement. And I guess the name, McDonald's Family Restaurant. And it was the first McDonald's corporation that was ever forced to close because they lost in court. Nobody went to that business ever again in that town when they took McDonald's Family Restaurant to court. And now that McDonald's is a bank. I thought it was kind of an interesting story that I would share, because he talks about, the power, the habit loop in chapter 1. He talks about, fast food and how it's detrimental that you don't eat fast food, and how it is created and designed by scientists to make you want more of it, and it's a losing battle. Chapter 2, the craving brain. This is a great chapter, you guys. It teaches about the cues that create habits and tells a great story about toothpaste. And it's an unbelievable story. And unfortunately, I don't want to give this chapter away. I mean, you can get this book for $9.99 on Kindle. I think it's around $10 all across the board on most platforms. On Audible, obviously, it's a little bit more expensive because you have to pay for somebody to read it. And it's read by Mike Chamberlain. And it's an unbridged production on Audible. And I had bought it on Audible long ago, and it is one great listen. I did not read the book, but I have actually purchased the book at stores and given it away, though, because it's a wonderful book. And there's a lot that you get from it. There's a lot to take in, but it's also a lot to really think about in your own business and your own habits. Chapter 2, The Craving Brain. Man, you guys, when you read this chapter, it will blow you away. And it talks about how $1 billion was made on toothpaste. And it will change your ideas about brushing your teeth too a little bit. But I mean, it won't make you create, a bad habit. I don't think it'll make you want to have a good habit. But chapter 3, the golden rule of habit change. That's a really good one. Chapter 3, Charles Duhigg, he talks about Alcoholics Anonymous and how they built the building blocks of habits and stuff. So, people started recording alcoholics that identified with cues and how choosing new routines was important to them. So they had people recording, meeting with alcoholics, and they were writing down that alcoholics identified with cues, and that alcoholics identified choosing new routines is important. But without this other key component, this newly found truth could not be consistent without this other little component. So, in chapter 3, the golden rule of habit change, Charles Duhigg is talking about how these people interviewed alcoholics and took notes, all across the United States at different AA meetings. And AA is a wonderful thing for anybody who wants to change their life and wants to get away from that stupid control that, alcohol is legal, but alcohol is way worse than a lot of things, man. It causes so many different problems and so many ailments, and it's one of the worst drugs to actually have to come down from. If you're a true alcoholic and you're forced to come clean, you could actually die much more easily from alcohol withdrawals than heroin withdrawals or nicotine withdrawals. Alcohol actually has really serious physical body cravings that it can cause you. I'm telling you guys from personal experience. What made me quit drinking is I had went into detox in Phoenix, Arizona, because I had gotten with this girl that kept begging me to drink, and I kept telling her, no, I don't want to. I've been sober for a while. And she kept telling me, oh, it'll be okay. It's been years. So I wound up drinking, and then I didn't have a shut-off switch. But my first encounter with an AA meeting that changed my life forever, and I've never drank since. I'm never going to drink again. So I wind up going to detox because I'm like, I don't want to do this. I want to get away from this person. I want her out of my life. But I wound up staying with her for a year because I found AA. And it said, do not change your relationship. My sponsor told me, don't change anything because it could be you causing all this stuff because of the alcohol and because of your mindset. So I stayed and I asked her to get sober, but she wouldn't. But my first time at an AA meeting, the guy to my right was 27 years old. The guy to my left was 23 years old. And I remember the 27-year-old was so messed up. And he all of a sudden just started like flopping around and then died right there on the spot. Right in front of me, died. Like, it was unreal. Like, they came in, all the EMTs came into the AA meeting. We're doing, chest compressions and everything. It was just unreal. And I was sitting there and I was still drunk because I had just got there. And they took him out on a stretcher. Man, it was a real wake-up call. Everybody in that room was silent, and the looks on our faces was very puzzling, very scary, and very real. We got back to the AA meeting. I said, "Hey, I am who I am, whatever." And I'm an alcoholic. And then I got into that, and they told me about why you say that, owning up to your, not minimizing your alcohol use and owning up to your abuse of alcohol. And that's why you say your name and come forward, that you're taking ownership for that. But the kid to my left of me, as soon as it got to him, boom, he falls down and starts having a seizure. Right in the middle of this AA meeting. I just got done telling my story and how I got there, and that I didn't want to go back to drinking and everything else. And I was just trying to get clean. I didn't want to do that stuff anymore because I knew I didn't need it. And I didn't need that girl telling me I needed it, But anyways, this kid lived, though. The 23-year-old lived, but I walked out of that facility a day later. And I never have drank since, and I never want to. But in chapter 3, when he talks to alcoholics, they identify with cues, and that they are important, as well as new routines, but without God, in reality, it's like the 12 steps. It's the understanding of a higher power. The understanding of a God, the God of your understanding, how you understand God is a key component into creating, a habit that sticks, because you have somebody to own up to and to confess to without harming anybody or anything around you. And that's how I feel. And that's not in this book, but that's my own words. But this chapter was a really good one, and it made sense because researchers hated that explanation that alcoholics identified with cues and new routines as well as God. They hated that they used God because God is not a testable hypothesis, which I don't agree with, because there are world-renowned Christian scientists out there. I mean, Charles Collison was one of them. I've read one of his books, and I think he's a great Christian scientist. And I think Ray Comfort's also a Christian scientist as well. He's still alive. But chapter 3 was a really great read. You guys will enjoy it. I think that there's so much to absorb in chapter 3 that I only touched on a little bit, but I mean, as you can tell from my story, that Alcoholics Anonymous, they are one of the greatest habit building components for people going through addiction, and NA or whatever it is that you belong to, that you have addiction problems with or whatever, because addiction in America is real, whether it be Starbucks or not. Look at the lines at Starbucks, you guys. They're going out the door, across the street to the next town. It's like, wow. And people will wait. They don't care because, well, we'll get there. Chapter 4 is Keystone Habits. And this is your boy, Lo Jackson, coming to you live from Charleston, Illinois. I'm reading to you about the power of habit. And I like to incorporate some stories from my life, things I've gone through with my podcast. I'm doing book reviews because I think some of these books are some of the greatest things that I've ever read. And some of the things that I've learned, I think they're well worth learning for other people too that suffer from different types of bad habits or addiction, terrible social cues, whatever it may be, or you're just trying to get better in the workplace at getting along with employees or being a better boss to your employees, because we all go through a certain time frame where we want to be different people, build better relationships, and if you're not trying to strive to be better, then you're missing out. Life's too short to be always caught up in stuff that's going on around us instead of being caught up with what's going on inside of us. Chapter 4 is Keystone Habits. It talked about the company Alcoa, and how a guy named Mr. O'Neill took this company and fast-tracked their company's safety department to Keystone Habits, and the employees made this change. It all the costs came down, profits went up, and then they were able to create better quality products from the worker safety platform created by Mr. O'Neill. And in reality, Mr. O'Neill created the first email safety platform for workers, and it became an email of, hey, let's tell secrets about other companies and how can we be better. Oh, hey, what about this over here? And other companies didn't realize how this company was making all this money at Alcoa and how they were being so dynamic, but they were doing it because this guy created an email thread that he was emailing so they had like managers working with the staff on the floor, and when anybody said anything about anything to do with safety, boom, they emailed the plant, and that's how it generated, this humongous email thread of CEOs checking on managers checking on people lower than them, and everybody emailing everybody, and everybody being able to read the email threads. But they started talking about, ways to, cut down on cost, ways to save money, how other companies were saving money in these emails, and they became a powerhouse. And it talks about these Keystone Habits in chapter 4, and I think it's a great read. Because in business and life, you can use any of these Keystone Habits. They're easily applied. I'm applying them. I'm trying to. I ain't the most perfect person in the world, nor is anybody else. We all have problems. We all have opinions, and we're all going through something that we don't know about. And I just try to live my life every day as the best person I can be. Try to lift up other people. Try to be supportive when things aren't going the way they should be. And I try to always remember my habits that create this person I want to be. And I have to be the change, because if I'm not going to be the change, my kids are never going to be the change, and nobody else around me will be either. Chapter 5 is Starbucks and the Habit of Success. Starbucks, man. I heard a guy say one day, he's like, it ain't Starbucks. He's like, I call it $5. He's like, you can't get out of that place without spending $5. I was like, oh man, that was a good one. $5, man. I'm going to go over there for $5. And it's true. My wife goes there every day. And she's complaining now because it's been going on for 10 years. And we were doing it in the city. It was fun because Starbucks has competitors in the city. Like in Phoenix, they got Dutch Brothers. Dude, Dutch Bros, their lines are all the way back a mile long too. Because they have way better products, I think, than Starbucks. And it's college kids, hipsters, having fun. Christian kids talking about their church, giving out, flyers to come to church on Sunday. It was cool. And they were inviting and they were warm and inviting, that company. And there's another one out there called Desert Eagle in Phoenix. I love those guys. I don't know what kind of blenders they use on their blended coffee, but wow, man, they really had me hooked. Like Charles Duhigg talks in chapter 5, Starbucks and the Habit of Success. And in reality, he talks about if you give employees a greater sense of authority, people bring their own discipline to work. So, and then I feel like that goes on at the company that I presently work for. There's a lot going on inside of here of change too, and I think it's a good place to work. I mean, every company has its ups and downs, honestly. And I mean, Starbucks, they really nailed the habit of, the habit of success, because any Starbucks, it doesn't matter where it's at. There's always somebody in line there. They're always making money. Even the one, it's crazy. I've watched this one here in my town now closed down like 3 times this year because of COVID, which was a bummer. And they've really bounced back, though. You can tell because the lines are even longer now that the COVID and the mask mandate's been lifted, thankfully. But Chapter 5 was a really great read. I think you guys would enjoy it as well. The Habit of Success is one of the greatest reads I've read. And it talks about how Starbucks really created a great, great idea. I mean, Starbucks has created so many great things, you guys. And a lot of companies have too that we just don't even know about. And all these companies are learning from each other, and that's why we spend so much money with these companies, is because they're learning to control our habits, and we need to learn how to break those habits too at times. Chapter 6 is the power of a crisis. T.D. Jakes once said, in the midst of chaos, opportunities will arise. And I feel like that's a crisis. I really loved chapter 6. I'm not going to actually delve into chapter 6. I'm going to leave that one for you guys to read, because there's a lot to learn in that one. There's a lot to take in, and it's a lot that I don't think people really realize that goes on when there's a crisis. You know, we become strong once we get out of the crisis. During the crisis, we feel like we're never enough and we're never going to get anywhere, and it's not true. We are enough, and we need to build better habits and realize that Charles Duhigg was onto something when he wrote this book, The Power of Habit. You know, because he was really a genius, I think. Great mind, obviously. Chapter 7, How to Target. Knows what you want before you do. How Target, the company, knows what you want before you do. And this is a great chapter. I learned so much about this chapter. It's like nobody ever realized that Target hired statisticians to gather everything about you that you do. They were the first company that sent out a pregnancy prediction. They're the first company that started the pregnancy prediction award. It was entered at Target, and it was pretty much spot on. It predicted when you were going to have your baby. And in this chapter, Charles Duhigg talks about how this dad came into Target like screaming mad. One of the manager had this, like, his fist clenched with an ad in it. And the manager gets up there. The gentleman says, I want to know why you sent this to my house, to my 14-year-old daughter, and why it's addressed to her when she's underage. And the manager was like, oh my God, I am so sorry. I had no idea, you know, because the manager didn't know that there were statisticians recording every single buy. When they started doing this, it was said, type in your area code. Boom, they knew exactly where you lived. They know your area code. They know what you're doing. They understand that you have to buy stuff and that you live in a certain demographical area, that they're recording everything that you're buying now. And because you're using that debit card or whatever. When debit cards came out, the statisticians got even more information about us of everything that we were buying from their stores. So 6 months later, that same dad came back to the store with a little bit better look on his face, I'm assuming. This is what I listened to in the book, because I listened to the Audible. Or I bought the Audible to this book. But he came back 6 months later, and he asked for the same manager. The manager came out and said, how can I help you, you know? And the dad said, well, I owe you an apology. He's like, what do you mean? And the dad explained, I came in here 6 months ago mad, wanted to know why you had sent that flyer to my house. And he's like, yeah, why are you sorry now? He's like, well, come to find out, my 14-year-old daughter was pregnant. Because their statisticians created a system that was spot on. And every company in America is doing this to you. Every company in America is recording everything about you that you're doing and buying in their stores. They know what you're going to buy before you buy it. That's why you keep seeing these ads and these algorithms and these little pop-ups when you're playing your games and everything, is because that's what you're looking at. And they're trying to entice you to spend your money with them or some other company. But chapter 7, I learned so much from that chapter. It's a great read. There's way more to these chapters, you guys, than I'm leading on. This is just a tad bit, a little bit of the book review of what you would be getting into if you buy the book and read it, because I did, and I go back to this book all the time. And like I said, if I see it out at a store, I buy it and I give it away because it's really a great read, and it's something to you. It's useful in business, it's useful in life, and it's useful at home and inside everyday situations. Chapter 8 is Saddleback Church and the Montgomery Bus Boycott. That is one awesome read. I'm not going to get into that one. I'm going to go to Chapter 9, The Neurology of Free Will. Are we responsible for our habits? Of course we are. But there are scientists and companies out there working hand in hand to try and get you to buy more telephones, to buy better gadgets, and those gadgets that you buy that are better, and all those updates that you do, you're updating your phone all those times, and it's updating more ways to get you addicted to that screen. And food as well. There's food scientists out there that are using chemicals that our government says are legal to get you so addicted. You know, monosodium glutamate. There's so many different wild chemicals out there that, you know, and some of the ones that say, oh, it has vitamin such and such in it. You know, it might be a vitamin, but it might be a strand of that vitamin that's actually not even soluble to your body, that creates like salt buildup in your body that winds up creating detrimental health issues later down the road, that all the salts in your body have you, you know, pretty much in health crisis from time to time. This book is one great read. I think you guys should really check it out. In Chapter 9, The Neurology of Free Will, it talks about gambling and how it is one of the most evil habits, that it only hurts thousands of people, and we don't realize that, we do realize, because, I mean, obviously we have gambling hotlines, and, you know, this book actually talks about how, you know, there's systems made up that in casinos they have, you know, fail-safes for people. Like, oh yeah, we know them. They're not coming here. Throw them out. Get them out of here. You know, they know that these people have gambled their entire life savings away, or their homes. You know, out in Las Vegas, there's people like that, I'm sure. Not saying that I've ever met them or know them, but I'm sure there is. But Charles Duhigg, man, he did a great write here. The amount of thought he put into this book, the theories, the stories, and the truth behind it is really fascinating. And, you know, and every book's always going to have its haters, just like every person's never going to be liked by every single person they come into contact with. And, you know, people are going to try to hurt people for nothing. I get it. It's life. I just keep on moving on. I'm humbled by your sweet kindness that you've given me, but I'm going to keep on being me. I'm going to keep on being kind. I'm going to keep on trying to be the best person I know how to be. You know, in Chapter 9, The Neurology of Free Will, he also talks about smokers and lung disease. And I think that everybody knows how addictive cigarettes are. You know, they're more addictive than heroin. They're more addictive than alcohol. Yeah, I have smoked in my life, and it is not fun. I never really wanted to smoke. I had a girlfriend that got me to smoke once. It's always these girlfriends. Man. Now it's all coming together now, you guys. I'm terrible at choosing girlfriends. Thank God I'm married. Amen. Charles Duhigg wrote a really good read. I hope you guys check it out. The appendix actually gives you the rundown of how to use this book to help you change certain personal habits. And it's a manual or a framework to experiment. It tells you in there to experiment with rewards. The appendix gives you a lot of different insights. And like I said in the beginning, it's all about how you apply a book. There's no clear-cut case. And unfortunately, in today's society, people think they want it here and now, right away. And life just isn't ever like that. You know, you got to work hard for certain stuff, you know. And you got to be patient with, and it's actually better to be patient. When you're patient with things actually go a lot smoother. When you're patient, you don't get so mad. And when you're patient, there's a lot more joy goes into something when you're patient, I feel. And obviously Charles Duhigg understood that when he wrote this book, because there are so many nuggets of truth in here that could help an individual realize better pathways to being better, habit-oriented people, I read a lot of reviews that people didn't like this book, but I give it a 5-star review. This is your boy Lo Jackson coming to you live from Charleston, Illinois. I like to go back and forth from my job and my home, but thank you for listening to The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Run out and buy it. You can get it at Audible. You can get it at Kindle. You can get it at Walmart. You can get it at Amazon. Hardback. They have softbacks. Paperbacks, softbacks. What is this, a Harley Davidson Softail? No. Thank you guys for listening. Again, follow me. Share me if you like. I'm not the greatest. Give me some insight if you don't like what I'm doing or if you think I should do something different. And I'm trying to get this to where I can interview people. And I'm doing this live. So, obviously sometimes I lose my train of thought or I lose my place where I'm reading from. It's live, and I'm not trying to be somebody I'm not. I'm just trying to relay information that might help somebody out, and it helped me out, honestly. These are books that I've read and listened to because I feel like in life, if you don't read, listen, and do hands-on, you're never going to retain or learn anything. And I've only learned to be a better PLC automation electrician by doing hands-on learning, and actually now I'm doing industrial maintenance period during the day, and it's a lot to remember. And remember this, if you don't use it, you lose it. And that's why it's important to, brush up on your skill set, whatever it is you may be doing out there in your job and your life and at your home even. Hobbies are important. Remember that too. I told my son, I'm like, sit down, let's color. I pulled all these coloring books one day. He looked at me like I was crazy as hell. I was like, dude, it's the power of habit. I met a neurologist out in Phoenix. I was doing his air conditioning years ago. I had no idea he was a neurologist. I was just there to see what was going on with his air conditioner. And I walk in, beautiful home. In one room, it was nothing but the most artistic pictures you could imagine. I'm talking world-renowned artist. And I thought, whoa, this guy's an artist, man. Then he takes me out by the garage. I go into the garage. There's a 1955 Bel Air sitting there all taken apart. I'm like, whoa, maybe this guy's a mechanic. And so finally we get to this one room and it's all these instruments. And I'm like, whoa, maybe this guy's a musician. And finally I look at him. I'm just like, sir, what do you do for a living? He said, why do you ask? I said, well, when he brought me in, I thought, you're an artist. Then he brought me to the garage. I thought, well, maybe he's a mechanic. And I said, then he brought me back by the bedroom back here, and I thought, and I was like, well, maybe he's a musician. And he's like, no, I'm a neurologist. And I'm like, interesting. I'm like, so why do you have all this stuff going on in here? And he said, well, honestly, sir, I have to take my mind off of my job because sometimes I'm in surgery for 10 hours at a time. My eyes and my mind need time to do something else. And he said, sometimes I make music, sometimes I draw the most intricate pictures in the world, but my mind's doing something else besides neurology. And it stuck with me forever, and I've done the same thing my whole life. I make my own music, I mix my own music, I'm doing my own podcast, and I try to stay true to my hobbies because, that's a part of my habits. Those are good habits. And people, when they see me play guitar, they think, oh, you're awesome. You're great. I'm like, oh, I am? I'm like, why do you say that? They're like, oh, because you are. And I'm like, well, no, it's just because I practice, because it was habit all these years. thank you all for listening. This is your boy Lo Jackson.